What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. Guys, we're continuing our positional breakdown videos, this time with the linebackers. We're going to kind of divide it into two groups here. People that we think are going to get some play time, and people who we think might actually just end up being camp bodies. But we'll go ahead and start with the best here, Cody. And I mean, when you start with the linebacker group, you have to start with Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin, I believe it was the 2018 draft pick that he was, and as quickly went from a 7th round draft pick out of Syracuse to now being one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Actually broke the franchise record for tackles in a season a few years ago, has quickly become a leader and a spokesperson for this organization. I mean, Zaire Franklin's one of the most respected guys out there, and he's quickly showing you why that is.
Yeah, you talked about it. Zaire, probably one of the best stories as well in the NFL. You talked about it, 7th round pick from Syracuse. I mean, when you're a 7th round pick, you obviously have that chip on your shoulder. I mean, nobody thought that he would become what he's become now. So it's been a really cool story to see Zaire, come from being a 7th round guy back in 2018, played a lot of special teams early on. He was actually the special teams captain for a while. And then obviously when some injuries happened to Shaq Leonard, Zaire started to get some more opportunities and really took advantage, like you talked about in 2022 when all that stuff was going down. Zaire had quietly a really, really good season. Like you mentioned, broke the Colts franchise record in tackles with 167 and just had a really great year and came out of nowhere. Nobody expected, former 7th round pick to do that, but Zaire, came out of nowhere and really has been so good and went from the captain of the special teams now to the captain of that defense. So definitely a great story from Zaire and, just always around the football, always making plays, and just an awesome, awesome story from, a linebacker for that really nobody expected. And I just love to see a guy like Zaire Franklin now starting to get some of that recognition and, comes in actually being the entrenched starter last year and not only, breaks his own record, but continues to just be better at the linebacker position and, comes in and has 179 tackles and just continues to be one of the better middle linebackers in the NFL. So absolutely love Zaire Franklin, what he provides for this team on and off the field. I mean, so valuable, especially considering just kind of some of the transitions the Colts have gone through with their linebackers the last couple of years with, some new faces in this building, some old faces moving on. Zaire's been that guy that's been very consistent. So, yeah, absolutely love him and his leadership on this linebacker room. And it really is his defense at this point. He's that guy calling the shots. And he's got that dog in him, man. Like everybody follows what Zaire does. He's just one of those guys, natural born leader. Obviously, he was a leader at Syracuse. He was a captain. And he just continues to show that leadership in the league now. And so couldn't have seen a better thing happen to a better person and a better player in Zaire Franklin. So definitely deserves all the recognition and flowers that he's getting now because definitely just coming out of nowhere and an incredible story of a guy that was majorly underrated, and Colts made a great decision in 2018, taking him in round 7. So love to see that from Zaire, and it's really been cool to see him grow into that leader position over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and especially, at the time that it happened too, with Shaq Leonard going down. And then, of course, last year with Shaq Leonard, not being on the team anymore, it just was a very interesting time for the Indianapolis Colts because, fans, we talked about it, the first 4 years of Shaq Leonard, were some of the best years of linebacker play that we had potentially ever seen, especially from a Colts linebacker. So it was a much needed boost for a defense that was searching for its leader and all those other things. So definitely great to have a Zaire Franklin out here doing what he's doing now. And then we move on to his wingman, and that is E.J. Speed, one of my all-time favorite players for the Indianapolis Colts. love EJ Speed. Again, a 5th-round draft pick. I believe it was the 2019 draft. A small school guy that had all the intangibles in the world, and had to scrape and fight to be able to just make the roster a few years ago. And now, with a lot of different guys moving on, obviously with Shaq being gone now and Bobby Okereke moving on, that allowed for EJ Speed to come in here and prove what he had. And EJ Speed has, turned into that coverage linebacker that you can rely upon a little bit. And he definitely is a run stuffer, and he's got everything you want in a player. Tell me about EJ Speed, man.
Yeah, just very similar to Zaire. I'll be obviously a little bit different coming out of a small school, but just another late round guy that the Colts took a chance on, a year later. And we knew immediately when they drafted EJ Speed, we're like, the talent is there. Like, the dude was 6'4", 230. So like, we knew he had the talent. He obviously was just a freak athlete, extremely big and long for a linebacker. But obviously the questions were about, can it translate to the NFL? Can he take the level of competition that he was playing, which obviously wasn't that great at Tarleton State, and, can it translate to the NFL level? And yes, it did take him a while. He's a special teams guy. He's like Zaire for the first couple seasons, but, similar in a way to Zaire, this last year with the stuff with Leonard, it opened an opportunity for EJ Speed, right? Because at this point last year, EJ Speed was a number 3 linebacker in this defense, and we all presumed Shaq Leonard was going to be back and kind of take that number 1, number 2 role. But with him just not being that guy and eventually obviously being released from the team, it gave a great opportunity for EJ Speed to make the most and capitalize on his opportunities. He's been a special teams guy for the majority of his career, but now he got that opportunity. And he definitely, took advantage of that and obviously had a great season overall, eclipsing 100 tackles, adding 3 forced fumbles and, just doing a couple things on this defense. And so by far the most snaps of his career, but you're starting to see why the Colts, took him in round 5 back in 2019, because he is such a rare athlete at the linebacker position. And he's very much the type of athlete the Colts like in their defense, very long, fast, physical, and can really run sideline to sideline very quickly. So, yeah, EJ Speed, great addition. You talked about it. Zaire Franklin's kind of partner in crime there. So, definitely love that number 1 and number 2 duo there. I think they really complement each other well because, Zaire is very athletic and stuff, but, EJ is just on a different level when it comes to that. So very excited to see what he looks like in year number 2 as kind of that presumed now full-time starter moving forward. Like, what does he look like here in year number 2, knowing that really it's his job, coming into training camp and stuff.
Yep, and we've gotten a chance to actually talk with EJ Speed at training camp last year. Certainly hope we get a chance to do that again this year. Moving on now to the 3rd linebacker spot. Again, guys, this might be out of order, just depends on kind of how you want to view this whole room. But we'll just kind of go with it here. We now have the 3rd linebacker, Segun Alubi, who actually had to play quite a few minutes last year, Cody, after, because the linebacker room was not as deep for the Indianapolis Colts as they would have liked for it to be at the end of the year. I think Alubi had an interception in the Panthers game, if I'm not mistaken, and played some pretty darn good minutes for that defense too last year. Again, still a very young player, so the Colts have a lot of high expectations for him. Only 24 years old. He's only entering his 2nd season. I think that this could be a good test this year, Cody, for Alubi, because he did some good things as a rookie. I love to see what he looks like with another off season under his belt.
Yeah, I thought he filled in pretty nicely. Out of all the linebackers that had an opportunity last year when more snaps became available, I think he was kind of that guy that you would say kind of had that opportunity the most. So I think that's probably why at this point, and again, that can change very quickly, we probably project him into the number 3, but it is not set in stone at all, Derek. Like, Alubi showed some nice things. He's still young, but he's going to have to compete, man, because there's a lot more, I feel like, talent in this room now, a lot of young talent that's going to be competing for that number 3 spot. So, but right now, I would say if you're making me, make a depth chart tomorrow, I'm probably saying Alubi's right now the number 3 guy, but I mean, that can change very quickly. But yeah, as far as Alubi, I thought he played well, kind of in those spurts. And you obviously didn't get a ton of snaps being that number 3 linebacker and basically the number 4 linebacker for a good chunk of the season, but I think in the games that he did play, he had an impact and he made a couple of plays, and still a young player that can continue to grow as a linebacker, and excited to see him in year number 2, like you said.
Absolutely. All right, moving forward, we'll actually go to another player that was actually on the roster last year for a chunk of the year, Cameron McGrone. Like I said, was on it a little bit last year, and he's been in the NFL for I think a few seasons now.
Yeah, he got drafted in 2021.
2021, yep. So a few seasons in the league now. Only had 2 tackles last year for the Colts. Still only 24 years old as well. So again, a very young player. This unit definitely continues to get younger and younger. Do we see any expectation here from McGrone, or are we thinking just special teams, Cody?
I'm thinking probably special teams. I mean, he initially made the roster last year, but he was more of just like that special teams guy. But I think he has a chance. Like, I'm not going to say he doesn't have a chance at that number 3 linebacker position, because, I mean, again, he is a guy that, out of, he was actually drafted. So obviously there was some talent, and, New England took him, and he was actually a guy that I kind of liked during that pre-draft process back in 2021. And I wanted the Colts to take a chance on him on day 3. So I think he definitely has some upside and some good things that you like as a linebacker. Like you mentioned, he's only 24 years old. So I think he has a chance. But yeah, I would say out of the couple guys that are competing, I probably think he has, if I'm kind of like, say there's 3 guys, I'd probably give the other 2 guys more of a percentage to win it. But again, you don't know right now. But he had an opportunity last year and still didn't really get a whole lot of snaps, despite the fact that, there was opportunity there. So yeah, I'm probably not expecting him to do a ton unless he obviously comes in and just shocks the world. I don't expect him probably to seriously compete for that number 3 linebacker, but I could be wrong.
Gotcha. All right, and then 5th linebacker, Grant Stewart, who has definitely been a special teams ace for this team ever since joining. Actually got added to the team in 2022, and a lot of people are thinking, like, who is this guy? Because the Colts actually traded for Grant Stewart to get him on the team. I think a 5th and a 7th, if I'm not mistaken. And it has paid dividends for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if he's had a few blocks, but he actually returned the 1 touchdown against the Titans last year. Has had a couple other pretty good plays on special teams as well, and is actually, I think last year was actually the best defensive player for the Colts in the preseason, because he had a chance to actually get quite a few snaps. Actually led the team in tackle the preseason as well. So, I mean, what do you think about Grant Stewart here, man? I don't think he gets a lot of time on the field per se, but I mean, as far as special teams goes, this guy's about as good as it gets.
I'd say if there's anybody, I think, who has a really good chance to make the roster, that's going to kind of be in that, 4th, 5th linebacker, whatever you want to throw it in there. Grant Stewart's ability on special teams, like you talked about, is so valuable. I mean, he was so critical last year for the team. I mean, think about that Titans game. Like, he was so important in that game to helping, keep the Colts in that one. And special teams matters. I've said that for years. I'll continue to say that. And so players like Grant Stewart, they matter. Not for necessarily what they do on defense, but for their ability on special teams, right? I mean, heck, we've seen literally, like I talked about, the other 2 Colts linebackers, like they started on special teams and they had an impact on special teams, right? So it's a great place to start. But Grant Stewart, I love just his ability, and obviously love the crazy flying, flowing hair. I mean, that's just so iconic. So yeah, man, Grant Stewart, definitely a big asset for this team on special teams, and I definitely don't see him going anywhere soon. So definitely love to have him on the roster as kind of that final-ish linebacker. But more than that, that special teams guy that can really help make an impact there.
Absolutely. Last guy we'll put into this list that we have and was a draft pick this year, and that is Jaylen Carli, who was actually a safety at Missouri last year or last couple years. But the Colts announced shortly after drafting him that the intention was to move him to linebacker because this guy is definitely would be a very big safety. I mean, again, 6'3", almost 200, about 230. So this guy is borderline linebacker size. I mean, I'd say he's your prototypical size for a linebacker, but he was playing safety, and they felt like with his skill set, Cody, that he would be much more suited in certain packages for linebacker because the Colts have always been looking for more coverage linebackers. And with EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin's not much of a guy that can do that. Maybe Carli finds himself in more of those packages where it's obvious pass downs because obviously this guy playing safety in college, he understands how it works. So Carli being at linebacker, man, how do you feel about Carli in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, right? Like just another very athletic linebacker. I mean, yeah, coming from safety, I mean, he's a big safety, but he's not that small of a linebacker either. It's not like he's just like 200-pound linebacker. Like he's 225, 230. So like he is literally like it's kind of crazy, Derek, because I know obviously there's a little bit of difference with a few different things with probably like some arms, arm metrics and stuff like that, but when it comes to Jaylen Carli, I mean, he's definitely got some really, really good intangibles. I mean, he's similar to EJ Speed in the fact that virtually the same, frame. Like he's 6'3", EJ Speed 6'4", about 230. He's very long, athletic type of player. And obviously he wasn't the craziest athletic guy when it came to safety, but move that down to linebacker and you're like, okay, like this is definitely a lot more of an athletic linebacker. And you talked about it, like the Colts just needing more help when it comes to their coverage for linebacker. And he's just a guy that just feels like when he's around the ball, plays happen. That's what we kind of saw at Missouri when he had opportunities. He had, playing linebacker and obviously safety are different positions. But, I mean, this kid was always around the ball making plays. So I am excited. And, gosh, it's like if anybody knows what makes good linebackers and like the skills that they need, the instincts that they need, the ball skills, it's the Colts because they can find guys. They've done this before. They proved that they can find linebackers. And I think Jaylen Carli might be that same kind of mold where he's got exactly the body type the Colts are looking for at linebacker. Because, I mean, let's be honest, like Zaire Franklin's not the greatest in coverage all the time. Some of these other linebackers are not the greatest in coverage, right? But Jaylen Carli potentially provides, if he can win that number 3 spot, some really upside when it comes to coverage. Because if he can play pretty good at safety, just imagine how good he's going to be at linebacker when it comes to coverage. So I'm very excited to see him and kind of what that transition looks like because he's already been making some waves, man, in mini camp and OTAs and stuff. Like you hear his name making plays and you can't teach that kind of stuff with a player like Jaylen Carli. So I'm just excited to see how it translates on the field, but I think he has a real chance here to compete for that number 3 spot and maybe even get some playing time, Derek. I really think that's a possibility because I think out of the other linebackers that he's going to be competing with, I think physically he is the most talented guy and he's just got to obviously put it on the field. But I'm just excited and intrigued, especially when training camp rolls around here in, under a month now. I'm intrigued to see what he looks like because I think he has a lot of very good skills. And I mean, we've seen different people like our friend Drake. He's very high on Jaylen Carli and he really believes that he's going to have an immediate impact. So I'm getting some of those vibes that make me think he's going to be a potentially really nice find by the Colts in round 5.
Oh, yeah. All right. And then the last group here, and we can kind of clump all these guys, and you can tell me if you think otherwise. Austin Ajak, and then Craig Young and Liam Anderson are the other guys that are on this list right now. Again, guys, this is all lists before the 53-man cuts that we have. What do you think, Cody? You think any of those guys have a chance to make the roster, or are we looking at camp bodies for all those?
Yeah, I'd probably say camp bodies, all, either rookies or second year players. I would probably say, probably just camp bodies for me at this point. I mean, some undrafted guys, some guys that were on the practice squad last year. So I don't really think any of them, make the roster. I mean, just looking at the linebackers that the Colts had last year, Derek, I want to kind of pull this up because the Colts kept 6 last year. That was obviously Leonard, Franklin, Speed, Grant Stewart, Luby, and McGrone. And so, pretty much everybody outside of Leonard is on this roster. And then obviously you add Jaylen Carli's in there. So I'm kind of like, if the Colts keep 6 again, I mean, you pretty much have an idea based off of how it was last year. Unless one of these guys comes out of nowhere, I think you kind of have a little bit of an idea if you keep 6, who those 6 would be. And I don't really see it being any of these other guys that you mentioned, some of these younger, undrafted or second year guys. So I'd probably think a practice squad for me, to be honest with you, Derek, or just camp bodies.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on the positional breakdown for the Indianapolis Colts linebacker room. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, Colts.